Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Hanging Out with Nolan Hong. And joining me this week on the podcast is someone that I hang out with a lot, actually, when we're doing weddings together. She is an extraordinary wedding planner here in Hawaii. She is the owner of A Perfect Day Wedding and Special Events. And she also just launched her new business that is Borrowed Blooms, where we'll talk a little bit about that, but it has to do with floral arrangements for special events and weddings and such. And it's a really great concept. I'm super excited that she's starting this. I think it's perfect for what we all need here. But ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Miss Kelly Sugano. Hey, Kelly.
Hi.
So Kelly, I know we were going to talk a little bit about weddings and wedding planning and all that stuff, but because Borrowed Blooms is like so brand new, and it's such a unique concept, at least to me, because I haven't heard of it before. Can you explain a little bit about what your new company is, and what you provide for couples and clients?
Yeah, sure. So, simply put, it's just a full floral rental business. So we rent out florals for special events, whether it's bouquets or centerpieces or arch pieces and things like that. We just thought it was perfect timing, just due to of course inflation and shipping problems, and the weather's getting so much hotter, so flowers are dying a lot quicker. So it just made a lot of sense for us, I thought, to hopefully fill a need that we see growing throughout our industry.
Yeah, so I think that's the one of the biggest stresses for weddings is the flowers. Like, one, it's a very expensive a lot of the times, but two, like preserving them and making sure that they're still good by the time of the event and stuff like that. So what were some of the
Exactly.
things that you had experienced, in your many years of running weddings that made this go bing off in your head, like this is what would be a good thing for couples?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of things throughout the years, whether it's just, some couples tell me, oh, flowers aren't a big priority, but I still want to have some flowers. I don't want to spend a lot on them. Down to
Yeah.
people who maybe have allergies, or they fell in love with a certain
Oh
flower that's
yeah,
not in season. So then they can't have their favorite
that's
flower,
true.
but now they can have it year round. Or sometimes it's just the timing of things where a florist can deliver and set up at this time, but to leave the flowers out for 3 hours, they'll be kind of wilted by the time the ceremony happens. So then the chances of
Right.
the flow of the couple of them being able to use it again for the reception, it won't look so great. So there's a lot of challenges, and then it comes down to things like shipping problems and things like that floors are dealing with on a daily basis right now. And I just feel
Hmm.
so bad for the floors. I mean, the amount that they have to struggle through, and the amount of money that they lose on every single wedding just because things either don't make it in or they come in already damaged. And they're trying so hard for these couples. It's amazing what they have to go through on a day-to-day basis to try and be able to give their couples what they know they want so badly. But it's just
Yeah.
almost impossible nowadays, just because of so many different challenges, whether it starts from the farm itself and their suppliers do to just the shipping, or containers getting completely confiscated because there was bugs found inside of them or something. So it's just gotten really challenging for the florists, that we were hoping that this could be a way to kind of supplement things that maybe aren't possible for them, or we could even work with an existing florist, or just provide something that the florists don't feel confident in offering at that time of the year.
Yeah. See, these are things that I as just a regular citizen would never think of. But as soon as you say it, it's like, oh, that makes total sense that these issues are coming up and that this could be such a headache. And I know for a lot of like couples, they don't realize it until they're in the thick of it. And that's why it's so stressful, because they don't anticipate these things. It's like, why would we think about that? Or why would we assume that that could happen? Right.
Sure. And the stories that I've heard of florists literally driving around the island to find, six white roses here and three more there, just to try and fill their orders because their shipment didn't come in or something like that. And they spend literally
Yeah.
the whole day just driving around. And of course, when they're doing that, they can't reply to emails, So then the brides are like, "What's going on? Why aren't they getting back to me?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, they're trying really hard to get them exactly what they want. That's why they're not replying. It's not that they're sitting on the beach
Mm,
just hanging out. They're really
right.
trying everything and anything they can think of to get all their couples what they've been asking for."
So with your company, with what you're providing, what kind of product is this? So are they like silk flowers, or
So we use
how would you
different
best
types of
describe it?
materials. So for
Okay.
me, I spent majority of this year actually, getting samples from different businesses all over the world and trying to figure out
Oh,
which ones
wow.
I thought looked the best. So some of them actually are foam, some of them are silk, some of them have silk plus another additive to it to make it even feel really real, like a real floral, like whether
Oh,
it's a
crazy.
rose or a hydrangea. So not only does it look real now, it can also feel real. And that's really what I'm kind of just really shooting towards. So to me, it's not necessarily the cheapest things out there. It's the best quality is what I'm looking for, because I don't want
Yeah.
the couples who go in this direction to feel like they're getting something less than. It's something
Right.
that's just going to maybe enhance what they're trying to get.
Yeah. And so do you have just like a storage room of all kinds of flowers? Like where do you how does this all work?
It does. It's a storage unit, and it was so funny. I took a picture the other day, and I sent it to one of my other planner friends, and I showed her my storage unit is literally filled from wall to wall. That when you lift the door up, it's just a wall of boxes and containers now.
Oh my gosh.
Because of course, me being me, it has to be organized. So pink roses have to be in this one, and white roses have to be in this one, and so they're all separated. But because of that, now I have a need for so much more storage. Whereas a planner, I didn't really need it. It's
Yeah.
just me. I have to bring me, but now I actually have things that I need to provide. So yeah, it definitely takes up a lot more storage.
When you told me about this, you showed me some photos of it on your phone, and I was like so blown away. Like, because before you see fake flowers and be like, oh, that's so obviously fake, so tacky. But with yours, I was like, I can't tell the difference. So, is there somewhere that you have photos of examples so that people listening could actually see what these
Yeah.
flowers and arrangements look like?
So that's what we've been working on. And our website is set to launch actually next month in October. So right now we're finalizing all of our photo shoots, and we're getting all the content that we want to be able to put up there. So that way we can show more of what we do offer. And then what we're also doing for this first year, because of course, brand new company, everything, we're still building our inventory. So what I'm
Yeah,
doing this first year is I'm actually waiving the special order fees. So that way, if people want something that we don't already have already in stock, then I'm willing to order it, bring it in, and make it for them, but not charge them that special order fee, because eventually that will become part of our inventory. So the
yeah.
first year, people are very lucky because now they get to kind of bypass that extra cost.
Oh, that's cool. But that's also like the people who are that gives them incentive to get married now. Like, got to take advantage. Like for all these guys and girls dragging their feet, it's like, hey, we got to take advantage of this. Let's get married now.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, with inflation going in where it's going, honestly, there's no reason to wait. It's just going to cost more for the same
Yeah,
things,
for real.
whether it's 6 months or a year down the road. It's just going to have to. The costs are just kind of skyrocketing just everywhere in every single establishment, and no matter what type of business, right? It's just everybody's feeling it
Yeah.
because of everything changing.
Yeah. Well, that's super exciting, and as I mentioned, I'm really glad that you've come up with this because I gotta imagine for a lot of couples, it's gonna save a lot of stress and a lot of heartache, and make the process of planning wedding just that much easier because this was a difficult, part of wedding planning for a lot of people.
Yeah, we're just really, really lucky because we actually have some clients already that somehow found us in different ways.
Oh,
So one of
cool.
the huge big benefits that I realized is we made samples for them and actually show them, this is your bouquet. Do you like it? And if you don't,
Oh,
we can actually
wow.
change it. So it's not a
Yeah.
surprise on that day, like, oh, what were they able to do, or what came in, what didn't come
Yeah.
in. We can actually show them their literal bouquet and make sure it's exactly what they want, because now we have the ability and the time to do it. Versus, oh, we don't
Yeah.
know what we're gonna get, so we'll get you the best possible. So
Hmm.
it helps.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that makes total sense that you have this ability to do that now. And I didn't even think that couples didn't have that, luxury of knowing. This is all like fascinating to me. For you, it's probably like, oh yeah, this is like every day for me. But for me, I'm like, this is insane.
No, it's been
so,
wonderful. It's been good so far.
so you've been, but prior to this, I mean, of course, we mentioned that you've been a wedding planner. But how long have you been doing this? Because I know I've been working with you for many years, but I know you've been doing it far longer than from when I first started working with you. So how long have you been in the wedding planning industry?
So actually, last month, August, we made 20 years. So we're just over 20 years
Dang.
now. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, your career is a college student.
I know. It's crazy. I still can't believe it's been that long because it's been a journey, and sometimes it feels like just yesterday, but other times it feels like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe it has been a little while.
Yeah. So was the wedding planning like your first career or an only career? Because that's a long
Well,
time, and
yeah,
I
I
can't
won't say
imagine you had much
first and
time
only
before that.
career, but I mean, I've had many other jobs.
Uh-huh.
I, right out of high school, I wasn't one of those people that knew what I really wanted to be when I grew up. I just knew I wanted to work hard, I wanted to help people, and I wanted to enjoy whatever I did. And then my choices kind of led me to where I am. One of my last jobs was actually long-term jobs was actually at the YMCA.
Oh,
And
no way.
back then you're working with kids. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, so it
Yeah.
made sense to be there. And then eventually, you get old enough where you can't get covered by insurance by your parents anymore. So then you need to get a real job, like with more hours. So
Yeah.
I actually asked my boss at the time at the Y, and I just said, hey, I need to get more hours. So I have to find another job. Is there anything else I can do? And then luckily, then we had this preschool room. I remember that was never used on the weekends. So she said, hey, we have a preschool room. It's already padded and safe and everything like that. We rent it out for birthday parties. Will you work with the parents? I'm like, yeah, of course. So you start to do birthday parties and things, and your friends are like, oh yeah, you like paperwork, you like organization. And then they would get married, like, hey, do you want to help me? I'm like, yeah, sure. And it just kind of, starts from there. That's the local way, right? You just, friends and
Yeah.
family, and word spreads, and friends, sisters, cousins, co-workers call you one day. It's just, okay.
Was there
Well,
anything like when you're in going to school, like high school and stuff, where that even translated back then? Like you like to do a lot of group projects and like to lead the groups and stuff like that. Like, did you see that there were some like early, seedlings of this kind of
I
personality
guess,
that you like to do this?
yeah, maybe it's possible. I mean, I did help with, planning prom and that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
I think when I started out, honestly, it wasn't something that anybody really thought could be a career. I remember when I
Oh.
first told my parents, like, wait, and people are going to pay you to do that? Like, are you sure you can actually make money doing that? Because, I come from a very, I think, traditional local Asian family where, what do you want to be, doctor or lawyer? And I'm like,
Yeah.
not quite. So it was one of those where I kind of had to do both to appease my parents at the same time.
Hmm.
So I went to college. I, went through it, put myself through college just to make them happy. Because then they felt like if whatever you're planning now doesn't work out, you have something to fall back on. All right. So do the
Yeah.
responsible thing. And I did that. Never used it, but at least I had it. So in case I ever needed it, it was there. But
What did you get your
um,
degree in?
I ended up graduating with a degree in public administration.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I changed my major so many times, I had so many credits that eventually I just told my counselor, I just said, hey, I want to graduate as soon as possible. What can I graduate with? They said, if you take one more class, you can do public administration. I'm like, okay, done. So that's what I did. Graduated, got out, and then, yeah. By then I was already doing a perfect day. So I was like, okay, at least I got my degree.
Yeah. Was there anything from that you applied in your career at all? Like anything?
I mean, it was great in the sense where I got to be creative, and I don't know if it's so much from the class itself or just knowing I needed to fix things. And so,
Mm,
because I had to put myself through college, and I was, I'm kind of frugal, so I was like, okay, if I have to do this, that's a lot of money to spend on books that I have to spend on myself. So what I would do is I'd buy all my books, and then I would make copies of them late at night at Kinko's, every single page. Then the first day
oh
of
my
class, I would
gosh.
tell my classmates, hey, if you want to return your book, you can buy it from me for this much money, and I would just make them their own copy, and it was just copies. But I would just do that every single
Holy
semester,
smokes.
and then it would pay for my books, and then I was good to go.
That's crazy. That's genius. You could do that nowadays with like just scanning it and have
I
digital
know.
copies. But that back then we didn't have that. So that's crazy. I love that. Cuz yeah, those books are expensive, man.
They really, and back then they were actual books.
Yeah.
Nowadays, yeah, everything digital, but yeah, they were solid, thick books. But I was just like, yeah, this is too much. I cannot.
So when
Yeah.
so it's interesting that you said that back then when you started, it wasn't really perceived as like, oh, you could make a career out of wedding planning. So what?
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me because I look at weddings now as it's just like, duh. If you're gonna get married, you need to get a wedding planner. So it's hard for me to imagine that there was a time that wedding planners were not that common. So what was the industry like, and how did you feel going into it, knowing that that kind of wasn't a whole lot of like support going, oh yeah, this is going to be a fruitful career, you know?
Yeah, it was actually very different when I started. It was a lot of explaining what we did and
Yeah.
why anybody would pay us to do it. It helped that timing wise, that movie with Jennifer Lopez, The Wedding Planner, came out a few years later. So then that kind of
Mm.
explained a little bit more about what we did. Although I had to teach people that what we do is not what the movie looks like. We don't get to wear fancy clothes and eat out all the time and things like that. But it did help. Initially, it was a lot of just explaining what we did and why it became something that was valuable. I think in the beginning stages, it was a lot of educating not just the brides, but the parents as to why.
Ah.
Because we would get a lot of brides saying, but my mom said that, when she got married, she did it all herself. She didn't need any help.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, that's probably true, to be honest. But it's a little bit different in the sense where when your parents got married, they probably had a lot of help and they might not have had to have a full career back then. Maybe they were stay at home
Mm.
mom. Maybe they could, do a little bit more because they had more time. Back then, wedding parties would also do a lot more. The wedding parties actually helped with the planning. They did the floral meetings. They did the alterations or things like that. Whereas now the brides, they're like, oh, I don't want them to do anything. I want them to enjoy. I want them to relax. I want them to come celebrate with me. So they're not
Yeah.
really doing so much. So that's where we come in. We fill in as the replacement maid of honor and bridesmaid and mother of the bride. So that way they can all enjoy now. They're not doing it. So that's, I think, where there was a big change. And when people realize, you know what, there's a value to my guests and my friends and family just enjoying, that's where
Hmm.
that became more valuable to have us around. And they're like,
So
okay, I'm willing to pay for that. So my mom doesn't have to set up our favors and our centerpieces. They don't have to be running around getting us lunch that day. They can just come and enjoy and take the pictures and, be happy with us. I'm like, yeah, it's so much better because now you know that they're happy, they're relaxed, and now you can be happy and relaxed. Because if you see your mom
yeah.
running around sweating, you're going to feel bad for her. Then you're going to be worried about her and stressed out about her. And then that's not going to make you happy. So, yeah, it definitely makes
And
a difference.
she'll hold it over your head for the rest of your life. At least my
Yeah.
mom would. Remember when I
Yeah.
did all of this for you guys? The least you could do is pick me up some butter from the store.
True,
so
true.
so do you think that it was more a matter of introducing the general public to this concept of having the burden removed from their loved ones to create a more enjoyable experience, and that's how wedding coordinators got to be more popular? Or was there also, do you think, any kind of like social changes or maybe even like economic changes that lent to this I guess explosion of the value and appreciation of having a wedding planner?
Yeah, I think it was kind of like the perfect storm in that sense. It was probably a little bit of everything at the same time. Yes, it definitely did help that we could show the value in what we did, and that we could show why you would pay for actual experience versus someone who maybe just got married once and did it, versus someone that's done it multiple times and can kind of prevent things from now happening because they've seen how things can happen, so they can now prevent them from happening. But it also became a social thing in the sense where people are like, "Oh, I saw that on a TV show," or a
Oh
long time
yeah,
ago there
yeah.
was that other thing, "Whose wedding is it now?" or "Bridezilla," and all these kinds of things. And when these are more kind of visual in everyday life now, and you see it, then it kind of becomes more of a norm. So they're like,
Yeah.
well, don't I need to because all these other people have them? And even to the point where we saw the introduction of videographer. When videographers weren't even around, it was like, oh no, I don't need a videographer. But when people would
Yeah.
see it at more and more weddings, or they would see it on a TV show, they're like, oh, but don't I need a videographer now? So it's kind
Hmm.
of one of those things where if you see it more often, then you start to think I need it versus do you literally need it? I'm like, no, you don't literally need it. I keep reminding them, you just need a licensed minister, $60, and that's really all you need. Everything else is what do you want? So at
Yeah.
that point, you can prioritize what you actually want and take it from that kind of perspective.
So in your 20 years of experience, have you seen like significant changes in what weddings are like, or what couples are wanting? So I know the needs kind of stay the same, it sounds like, but the wants have changed. Have there
Drastically.
been things that you can pick out that's like, oh, this is what back 20 years ago never even a thought, but now here's where
Yeah.
we're at now?
Definitely, it's really mind blowing, and to the degree where sometimes I talk about that, I feel bad for them because they're getting married now versus when I got married more than 20 years ago. Because now the expectation is so much higher. Before, when
Uh,
we first started out, there was no specialty linen, let alone uplights and shibari chairs and all these things. But now they're almost normal. I think 9 times out of 10, every single wedding has them. Whereas before, it was you get the standard tablecloth with whatever it came with, and that was kind of it. But now they're kind of feeling like, but don't I need to do this, or don't I need to have that? Whether it's videography, whether it's linen, whether it's uplighting, or now the cold sparks and all these other things which weren't around before, but people feel the sort of the the need for it or the obligation to have it. So it's definitely changed. One thing that's interesting is photography has kind of stayed very constant as one of the highest priorities,
oh,
though.
interesting.
Photography and food has been one of the top pretty much consistently throughout the entire time because people relate photography with their memories, of course.
Hmm.
And then food is what local. Well, we're in Hawaii, and
Yeah.
local people is always food. So that I think will always be a constant as well. Having really good food, and then the memories thing. It's always going to be important. I think
Yeah.
in a little bit, there's been somewhat of a shift where videography's come more and more important because the younger generation value video so much more now.
Mm, yeah.
Whether it's just on being able to show a video on Instagram versus a photo, of course, we get a lot more traffic with video, and
Yeah.
they want that's
Yeah.
what they want, right? They want to see the traffic, they want to see the people like them, they're watching it. So if they want that, they're going to get that with video more than they will with pictures. But in
Yeah.
their mind, they're still thinking, oh, but photos will last me forever, not really realizing sometimes that video can last forever now. So again,
Yeah.
I think there is that sort of transition happening still now. Some people have actually made that jump and actually said, right, to be honest, I think video is more important to me, and photography is great, but it's not as high a priority as video.
Hmm.
But that's like 1 out of 10, whereas
Yeah.
9 out of 10 are still thinking photos most important.
Do you think that with this increase of like whether it's things that you've seen like how there's more coverage in the in media where like there's these reality shows and stuff that's why there's been such a shift in focus in making weddings more like a spectacle versus like what you're saying like 20 years ago it was like, hey, let's get together, we'll have a ceremony, eat, and then we have a few speeches and we're out of here. Now it's like the you mentioned the cold sparks, like that is, for those who don't know what that is, it's basically, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's like indoor pyrotechnics that are not flammable. Like it's safe because it's
Hmm.
cold, so it can't cause fire, and so that's why they can use it indoors. But it makes it look like absolutely epic that when the couple's dancing and there's these sparks flying behind them, and it just looks like this crazy movie scene. Um,
Exactly.
is that what you think is kind of why there's so much emphasis on making everything so grand now for many
Yeah.
weddings?
I mean, part of it is everybody's looking for something that makes them different.
Mm,
And then part of it is, yeah, if it's the memories that they're really going for, it's like, what do you want your memories of? Do you want your memories of, oh my gosh, do you remember our first dance was amazing? We had the cloud, we had the sparks, we had all these kind of things. Or do you want your memories to be, oh my gosh, we had so much fun with our guests? And that's kind of how we approach things with our couples too. We try to ask them, okay, so when you envision your wedding day, describe that to me. Like, what's going to make this epic for you? Is it going to be being able to show your guests things or have them experience things, or is it experiencing things with you? So that way we know sort of how to guide you in what direction and what kind of ideas to give you, because they're very different. Do you want to be on show, or do you want to be part of the experience with your guests? They're very different things that we would suggest to you based on what your end result is that you folks are shooting towards. And that's very, very different for each couple. So that's why for us, what we find is some of our couples do want the big show, but a lot of our couples tend to be wanting those kind of moments with their guests and spending time with their guests. And that's why I think it's so important for me to have somebody like you as an MC that I can say, hey, if you want that, you really do need to have a really good MC, because it's not just, okay, now they're going to cut the cake. Okay, now they did their first dance. It's how you introduce it and how you create those, moments and memories with your guests. Like how you learn things about their guests, and you can bring that up throughout the reception, because now they feel more special, because you can't bring that same thing up with another wedding because they don't have that same person at their wedding.
right.
But it makes a huge difference when you have somebody that's able to sort of create those moments for them versus just saying, okay, now the bride and groom are going to stand up and cut their cake, which is kind of what you need to do, but there's a way to do it to make it more personal to them, so that when they look back at it, they're like, oh my gosh, do you remember how he told me about this, or when he said that? It's again that whole experience that you can create for them. and trying to make them feel like that is just their first dance or just their cake cutting without
Mm,
it being something that's so unique. Because honestly, you can try to be creative with the songs, but it's a song that probably many other people like, so other people are going to use it. So it's not going to be that unique, but you can make it unique by how you introduce it or what you do during the cake cutting and all those other things.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as, you know, I think for you and I, since we see this all the time and we've been to so many weddings and such, this is like second nature to us to understand. But what I constantly get reminded of when I meet with couples for the first time is they're always, their first thing they say is, well, we've never been married before, so we have no idea what to
Exactly.
do or what goes on. And it's like, oh, I gotta remember, like, because I'm just going off of like, oh, I just last week I saw that they did this, this, and this, and it was fine. But for them, like, what do we do? So for you, especially for your clients now, with the way weddings are nowadays, what are like things that are kind of like the things that you stress to your the newlyweds, the new couples, especially the ones who've never been married before and never had a planned wedding. Like, what are the important things that you kind of establish for them to help one ease their mind, but to set their expectations right to help them feel like, okay, this is not such a scary thing, because that's the they always look like they have like fear in their eyes, like we have no idea what to do for our reception, you know.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's making sure that they understand that we want to understand what they want. And if they feel like we understand them and that we get it, then they know that we can help them to create that. And it really boils down to understanding and listening to the couples as to what's important to them and what do they really want out of it. I don't know if you remember, but you did a couple's wedding, Sarah and Zach. They're from the mainland.
Yeah.
It was at the Kahala and everything. It was a wonderful wedding. And I will never forget them because even in their thank you card to me later on, they said that, we will never forget and we thank you so much that you really strongly encouraged us many, many times to hire Nolan as the MC because I can't tell you how many meetings we had. And they're like, yeah, I think I'll just have my brother do it. Or, just have my friend do it because I think they can just do introductions because we've never been to a wedding that had a professional MC. So I don't think we need a professional. We just want someone to introduce things. I'm like, okay, you definitely can. And we've had some really amazing friends and family be MCs. But to be very honest, based on what you're telling me you want, your personalities, and I think the kind of fun that you folks are looking for, I really, really recommend it. Just talk with Nolan. Just see if he would be a good fit for you because I think he would be such a great fit for you folks. And I remember at the end, they're like, oh my gosh, we had no idea that's what an MC could do and that's the experience that we could have.
Oh
And he really
wow.
brought it all together because, yes, he introduced the cake cutting in the first dance, but it wasn't just that. It was the in between moments. And again, understanding that these are their guests and this is how they're different and understanding, oh, this person's sitting in there and that person's sitting there and they're from here and they're from there. And, being able to bring that up throughout the reception, not just, okay, they're going to cut the cake. But it made a huge difference. They had no idea that it could be like that. And for them to even just point that out and like, oh my gosh, now we get it. Now we understand. It's being able to explain those things to couples so that way they know, okay, we're not just trying to get you to spend money. We're trying to tell you that this is what you really, really want based on what you already told us you really, really want. And this will
Yeah.
make that moment exactly what you're looking for. And for them to be able to trust us to know, okay, yeah, they really understand what we want. So that's why they're recommending this person. But it makes a
And
huge difference.
yeah, and I think that's what people need to understand too, is like, as a wedding coordinator, it's not like you are getting any kind of kickback from other vendors or
Mm,
anything. So it doesn't there's no incentive for you to suggest for couples to pay extra for services that they don't need. You're coming from a place of knowing what they want and what their expectations are, and having the experience to know how to achieve that through the different types of vendors or services that are available to them, right?
exactly. And we throughout the years there was a portion of time, we go through these trends, right? There's a portion of time where we know that there were couples that initially first question out of the gates was, how much money can you save us? And I
Mm,
would tell them, if that's the angle and the approach you want me to take, I can save you money, but that doesn't mean that they're the best fit for you and they're going to help get you what you folks want. So you need to tell me what is more important, that I show you on a line item that you saved money, or that this person that would have been cheaper anyway would have been a better fit for you. So you need to tell me which one is more important so that way I know which direction to take you, because I can get people to show you line item that they're saving you money, but they're still going to cost you more than something that might have been better for you. So again, it
yeah.
depends on what approach they want to take it. And sometimes, like you said, they just don't know how to approach things or what makes the most sense. So again, it comes down to education on our part to kind of teach them, okay, so you can do this. Is that what you really want? There's no right or wrong. You just got to tell me which way you rather have it. So that way I know how to best help you. Because I don't want you to later on to realize, oh my gosh, they were amazing at my sister's wedding and I could have had them and they were cheaper. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you could have. So
That's
yeah,
the
it's just education.
Yeah, that's the hard part is for majority of these couples, they don't get a second chance to redo it. So like I've heard so many times, like when after I've emceed a wedding, for example, like people come up to me and say like how, they enjoyed how what I did. And they go, I wish I knew that you were available or that you did this kind of stuff because I didn't know that you needed a MC and you had my uncle or my cousin do it. And it was so uncomfortable and awkward and stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't have the ability to go, oh, well, call me next time because there is no next time, right?
Exactly. And that's the hard part. They don't want to they're willing to spend money on things that they can see the value of.
Yeah.
And sometimes it really boils down to who they feel comfortable with talking to ask those questions because sometimes they're like, well, I don't want to ask them, are you worth it? You know what I mean? Like, how do they ask somebody that? Because is that being rude? I'm like, honestly, no, it's not because this is your money. You worked really hard on it. And if you're not sure, you should feel comfortable to ask. If you don't feel comfortable asking, that's not the right person to hire anyway. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So it's just feeling that level of trust and comfort with somebody so that way they can ask those questions because like you said, you can't do it over. And I can't tell you how many times we get letters from grooms that'll say, oh my gosh, when we started planning, I was the one trying to talk her out of getting a planner. But now I realize you're the best money spent. It's
Yeah.
just, but there's no way that they would have known unless they've gone through the process. By then, that time it's too late. But as an MC, I can tell you, I tell couples all the time, the most important person on an entire wedding day is not the coordinator. I really, to my core, believe that. It comes down to the MC. If you care about your reception at all, it's the MC. Because if your food's ready on time, it doesn't matter if the MC doesn't let the program start on time or they don't introduce the dinner on time or if they decide to do a
Hmm.
game instead. It doesn't matter if the slideshow is ready, the lights are going to be dimmed, and the right sound is ready to go for you if the MC decides, I think I want to cut the cake instead. Or if somebody that is a really funny friend in a group of 5 to 10 people, but you put them in front of 200 people, now they're nervous and they're drunk because they got so nervous, they're
Yeah.
not funny anymore. Or they thought, okay, this is their wedding, so I shouldn't be funny, so they turn it off. And the whole
Hmm.
reason why you ask them now doesn't apply because they're so nervous, they're really dry. So there's a way to kind of approach things, but it depends on what you're working with and priorities again, because it makes the biggest difference, way more than any coordinator, unless they're willing to take over on the mic, which I'm not. It's the MC, and I tell them that very, very straightforward and very honestly. It's not me because I can have everything ready, but if they can't follow a timeline, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or if they're going
I'm
to be really rude to the bride or groom or the parents or any of the guests, I can't stop them from doing it. But there are professional MCs that will unfortunately do that because they don't know any different or they don't know how to turn that part off. So it's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you are able to articulate this and share this because I feel like if I were to say it, people are like, yeah, you're just full of it. You're just trying to sell
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
services. But I so wholeheartedly agree with you on that. But it's so hard for me
It
to
is.
say that and have people take it seriously. Um,
Yep.
but as far as and it's such a hard concept for people to understand and accept as far as that the MC is so important, but also that an MC who is a stranger to the couples could be an MC to a couple's wedding. Because even my mom, still to this day, every time I bring up, like, she'll say, "Oh, what did you do this weekend?" I'm like, "Oh, I emceed a wedding." Like, "Oh, whose wedding?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know, a couple that hired me." She's like,
Yeah.
"They don't know," and this is the same conversation for the past like 15 years. They don't know you. How? Why did they have you MC their wedding? I was like, "Because they wanted a professional MC." And she goes, "But you don't even know them. How does that even work? Why? I can't imagine why anyone would want to hire you if they don't know you or that you don't know them." So can you explain? Because apparently I can't explain it well enough for my mom to get it, and she keeps
There's
asking
a
me the same
ton of
question.
benefits actually, but again, it boils down to a lot of times being a good professional MC. And what I mean by that is you take the time to understand and know the pronunciations, because that can be a painful thing if you're guessing like, oh, that's not my name. You know what I mean? But if you don't know, you'll ask to make sure that it's said correctly. And from a personal perspective, I think in a way it's actually better to have somebody that sometimes doesn't know you, and your history or the stories that you don't want shared. Like, for
Yeah.
example, when I got married, I told everybody no one's allowed to use a microphone except for this one person who's only going to introduce the cake cutting, and that's it. Nobody else is allowed to use a microphone, because I don't want my parents to find out stories about me on my wedding day that I never want them to know in the first place. You know what I mean? But as a professional, you're sharing the information that they want to share. You
Yeah.
know what they want you to know about them. And that's how you're able to make it personalized and still just as formal and elegant as they want it to be. Not the stories that they don't want shared. And you can still get to know the pronunciation of any person's name that they want you to be able to introduce correctly. It's not like you have to introduce every single person's name, but this way, again, they have full control as to what you do or don't know, and how much you're able to share about them and what they want you to share about them. So that's, I think, so much more valuable than having somebody that knows too much about you, gets
Hmm.
drunk and tells everybody all of your history, like, oh my God, I didn't want them to know that I stole their car, or, you
Yeah.
know, all those other things. So I think it makes a big, big difference. And then because you're paid, I think professionals should take it to a certain degree and be very sort of proud about what they do and who they show to
Mm.
their guests. So I really appreciate that you take it so seriously. You come on time, actually come early. You come professionally dressed. You don't wear like shorts and jeans. And I've seen some very unprofessional people sometimes who are actually paid. So that's another
Wow.
thing I tell couples is a professional doesn't mean that they behave professionally. So just because you pay them doesn't mean that they will dress appropriately, that they will take it seriously. So never be afraid to ask, hey, if I hire you from 5 o'clock, do you show up at 5 o'clock? Or what time do you think you're going to show up? Or how do you tend to dress at weddings? Can I see any pictures? Because if you take it for granted, unfortunately, if you're just looking at pricing, you might be very, unhappy with what you're surprised with that day. So never
Yeah.
be afraid to ask, because a professional should be proud of what they answer with. If not, then don't hire them.
And
You should be
another,
proud of how you represent yourself.
yeah, and another thing to that point too that I wish I could communicate to others, but it coming from me, it might sound like I'm, trying to throw shade or something, but maybe you can do a better job of explaining it. But there have been instances where I've attended weddings where a well-known public persona who you would think, oh yeah, of course they hired this person to MC the wedding because they're on television or they're a comedian or something to that
Yeah.
effect. And it doesn't quite result in like a wedding atmosphere. Um,
Yes.
if you know
Yes.
what I'm trying to say. So, could you explain? Because if it comes from you, it sounds way
Yeah,
better.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm happy to explain this one, because
Yeah.
honestly, I mentioned, I've been doing this for more than 20 years now, and my do not work with list, the only two people are actually MCs. And the
Oh
reason
wow.
why is because there's nothing I can do if they don't follow directions, if they don't work as a team, or if they don't know how to do what they're supposed to do and be respectful about it. I can't do anything about it. I cannot, tell them to shoot it again because they're not a photographer. I can't tell them to say it again. I can't tell them to put those words back in your mouth because they're not supposed to call the bride fat, or,
Oh
things
my
like that. And
gosh.
all these things, it's really it makes a huge difference. And I tell people it's not that they're bad people, they are really great individuals, and I can see why people would love to hire them as an MC. I think for weddings and graduation parties and things like that, where they are the show, they are the focus, and it's more lighthearted, it's not so elegant, and things like that. But when it comes to a
Hmm.
wedding, there's certain things that people don't necessarily know, or they're not aware of, that the reason why certain things are certain places are because of certain other things that they may not be aware of. And we don't want to waste their time and tell them all these things, so we just ask them to follow the program. But for example, if they decide, you know what, we can start dinner a little bit later. Yes, the food might get cold, but they don't realize the sun has also set, so now they don't get sunset pictures. Or they may not
Mm.
realize that, hey, you know what, we needed the program to end at 9 o'clock because they paid a band $10,000 to play from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. They even flew them
Yeah.
here. They paid for their hotel rooms and their transportation and all of that. But because you told inappropriate jokes and stretched out the program way longer than it was supposed to, they played one song. I cannot stop them because I'm not going to take the microphone away from them, but they control your entire program. So just because you paid them doesn't mean that they're going to be reliable, professional, and be able to follow the program or to adjust with the team, like the photographer, the videographer, the DJ, the banquet captain, and everybody. It's up to them to follow directions because they're the ones with the microphone. So even
Hmm.
though they're a paid professional, unfortunately, they may not be great for a wedding. They might be wonderful for a
Yeah.
grad party or for your mom's retirement party where, other people saw them and they're like, oh, they're really good because I saw them at so-and-so's grad party. Wonderful. Hire them for a grad party, not necessarily for a wedding. It makes a huge, huge difference when it comes down to a professional at a MC at a wedding versus another type of party. Very, very big difference.
See, that came out way better coming the way that you presented it. Because then
Well,
I'm like,
unfortunately, I've lived through those experiences, but that's why I can tell people that these things can and do happen, and my job is to try and prevent them. But unfortunately, if you're still wanting to give them a shot, that's completely up to you. This is your wedding. You
yeah.
should definitely do what you want and spend your money where you want it. But I just can't have you expect me to control that because I can't. I can't stop it once it starts.
What aside from that, what are some of the common things or misconceptions that either couples or families have of wedding planners that you wish that they could have a better understanding of that would, make things a little easier? Like maybe sometimes they incorrectly assume something about what the role or what the ability capabilities of a wedding planner is.
For me, I don't necessarily know that I have too many of those instances where people misunderstand what we do. I
Hmm.
think they actually forget what it is that we do. In
Oh.
the sense where they, lately at least, I would say within the last 5 years, not so much before that, but within the last 5 years, I've noticed that I have to sometimes remind people, oh, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. Or, oh,
Ah,
that's
yeah,
why we
yeah.
do that. Or that's, don't forget to update us because if we don't know, then we're not going to make sure it happens. So it's, I think, more just reminding people of why you hire a wedding planner or why you would hire us and what we do, because I know it can be really confusing, especially throughout the industry, because every company does work differently. And although
Hmm.
we may do it as a planning company, another company might not. So maybe that's why they forgot that we do it.
Yeah.
Um, or, like we might be at an actual wedding and then the DJ will come up to us and just say, hey, just FYI, they just told us that they don't want to do this anymore. So we're taking it out of the program. Like, thank you so much for telling me so I can tell the MC, the photographer, the videographer, the banquet
Yeah.
captain,
Yeah.
and everybody else. You know what I mean? He didn't just delete that from his program, but
Yeah.
the couple didn't realize that they should have told me. So I can make sure that everybody else knows because they may not realize how it affects all the different vendors at that wedding. So it's just kind of those little things of where I realize, okay, I think we have to kind of adjust and shift and remind people, okay, so don't forget now from this point on, if there's any changes, please let us know because that way we can make sure that all the right people are updated and that everybody's aware of what you folks are changing.
So I should have asked you this in the very beginning, but as you started explaining this, I was like, oh, this would probably have been good because, again, there are a lot of people who will probably be listening who have yet to get married or are thinking about it, and they wouldn't know any of the things that we're referencing. But as far as in your case, as far as what a wedding planner does, can you explain a little bit about like what they can expect and why it would be beneficial to have a wedding planner? Because I think we, the general population, has accepted that it's very normal and it's usually the case that couples will hire a wedding planner, but a lot of them will go into not knowing, what it is and that's why you have examples like you mentioned where they don't realize like, oh, wedding planner handles that. I don't have to worry about that. But so what are things that couples can learn to or come to expect when hiring a wedding planner like yourself, and why why so many couples hire wedding coordinators and
Yeah.
planners?
So this is kind of where we start off with most couples, I think, in the beginning, where they're like, okay, so what do you do or what can you do? So
Yeah.
my response to them is always, honestly, we do as much or as little as you folks want us to do. So for me, it becomes my job to understand where you're coming from as a couple, what your needs are, where you focus your priorities, and where you might see the value. Because if you don't see the value in me doing something, then why pay me to do it? So for me, it's talking to them and finding out, okay, what are your concerns? What are you worried about? What do you want to have happen? And then from there, I can kind of tweak and figure out, okay, based on what you're telling me, what your concerns are, this is where I think I might be of value to you. Does that kind of line up with what you're thinking? Does that make sense to you? And or they have no idea where they're even coming from. They're like, I don't even know where to start, what to ask you, or what I'm even worried about at this point. I think I'm worried about everything. Then I'll say, okay. Then taking a step back, I can tell you that, currently about more than 90% of all of our clients have us on their wedding day present to coordinate that actual wedding day. Does that sound like something that you might want help with? And then they're like, probably, yeah. I'm like, okay, good. So then from there, I can kind of tell them, okay, so your wedding day, at least to us, at a perfect day, your wedding day consists of 4 parts. It's the getting ready, the picture taking, the ceremony, and the reception. So most of our couples have us there for the entire day of, which is the entire 4 parts. But if you don't see the value in us being there for getting ready, don't hire us for it. If you don't need us for picture taking because your uncle's been a photographer for 20 years and he already knows what you want and you're solid with him, great. Don't hire us for picture taking. Maybe just hire us for the ceremony and the reception. And then we kind of take it from there. But we really try to customize our services based on the actual need of every single couple. So like we have another wedding coming up on Wednesday where they hired us just for the ceremony, because they're just going to a reception at a restaurant. And I'm like, if you're going to a restaurant, you're just making a reservation. You really don't need me there. So why pay me for the reception? I will be there for their ceremony. Before you get there, I'll make sure that everything is set up, ready to go. I'll line everybody up. I'll cue you folks, the music, the minister, the photographer. Once you folks are done, we'll make sure everything gets cleaned up and taken by the right people. Once it's all done, we will then vacate and you folks just have a wonderful dinner. Have a wonderful time. Enjoy your friends and your family and just go off to the restaurant. So it's really customizable in that sense. But it gets confusing to the degree where it's almost impossible, I think, for couples to compare apples to apples when it comes to coordination. Because even if they say, every couple or company can say, oh, in our day of service, we provide you with a timeline, which is great. You probably want a timeline.
Yeah.
But the timeline is not even apple and apple because, and I only know this because, our industry is really small. We're a tight-knit community. So planners, we help each other very often, with, oh, I need help on this day. Can somebody help me? Sure, I'll help you. I'm not doing anything that day. So we help each other at each other's weddings. But by doing that, I've learned throughout the years that there's different styles, there's different techniques. And for the same day that somebody might do a 2 or 3 page timeline, my timeline is going to be 40, 50 pages. So there's a difference where, yes, they're both timelines, but they're very, very different. And what I've learned is my timeline will stress out one couple, but it'll really make another couple feel really, really good. So the couple that I will stress out should go with the planner that has a 2 or 3 page timeline. They should not be my client. They really shouldn't be, and I don't want them to be. I want them to not be stressed out and find that other planner. So when I know that I'm stressing somebody out, I'm like, you know what? I really don't think we're the right fit for you based on what you're telling me and how I've gotten to know you folks just in the consultation. I really think so-and-so might be a better fit for you. Chit chat with them, talk to them, do a consultation, see if they might be a better fit for you because I really think they might be. And if they are, great. That's who you should go with. You shouldn't go with me just because you found me first. That doesn't make any sense. You go with what fits best. But because of that, there's so many differences. Even with a term like timeline, or when somebody says, oh, we do unlimited communication. I'm like, great. We do that too. Ours starts as soon as you become a client. Theirs starts 1 or 2 months out. They're both unlimited communication, but they're very, very different. So again, it's understanding what you're getting. And as long as you're happy with whatever it is, it doesn't matter if somebody else does it differently. You have to like whatever you're willing to sign up for and be able to work with that person in that way. Because if your mind works differently, don't make yourself fit into that peg or that hole if it's not really the best fit for you just because it's cheaper. If it's cheaper, it doesn't mean and it's the right fit. You're just going to be stressed out and anxious the whole time. And then it's not worth anything. So it really has to be the right fit.
Yeah, it's I always liken many things in life to cars. Like a car is a vehicle that can do all different types of cars pretty much do the same thing. They drive you from point A to point B, but it's such a total different, experience and different strengths and weaknesses and such. And that's why so many different people have different kinds of cars because it matches what they need specifically, right? So same goes for wedding planners and coordinators. Like it has to match them too, right?
So much more than I think almost any other category, because our product is us. Like ultimately, yes, you want to get along with your photographer because they're going to be with you all day, and if you're not in a good mood because you don't like them, you're not going to smile as much. But ultimately, their product is the photo. So if you look at the product, that's what's really important. But our product is us. So if you don't like us or you don't get along with us, then what are you paying for? You're paying for irritation or some level of anxiety. Don't do that. Like, you have to really enjoy the person you're working with because that's what you're paying them for. So it makes a huge difference. Huge, huge. Yes.
You know what I'm super impressed and surprised by it is that you mentioned that the wedding planning community is a tight knit group and that you guys all work together. Like before getting into the wedding industry and seeing that that's actually true, I would have assumed like, oh, it's a competitive market because there are just so many weddings to that need coordinators and
Yeah.
like there's so many of you. Like I would have just assumed it's like how other businesses work, which is very competitive and like, hey, these guys do this, but we do this better and stuff. But you
Yeah.
guys really are like really all friends and support each other. It's really
I
interesting.
think it. I think it at one point it maybe was more of a competitive competition thing, and it was getting kind of scary to a certain degree. Where people were like bad mouthing other companies, and I'm like, why does it have to be that way? There's no reason. There's way more business than anybody can handle, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses. So it's just about finding the right clients. So I would say, our industry, in a way, we were brought together in many different ways by different things that happened. I remember prior to COVID, a number of years beforehand, unfortunately, there was a planner who became ill and came down with cancer. We knew she was going to go through things. So we actually formed a group around her and we said, hey, if at any point you need help with anything, one day you feel sick, you can't do a wedding, call the group. We will find somebody, we'll send somebody to do your wedding. We've got it no matter what. If you can't do a meeting, you just tell us. We will cover for you. We'll go to that meeting. We'll do whatever it takes. So by doing things like that and then realizing, hey, you know what? It's not that we're taking away business from anyone. We're just literally helping. That's all we're doing. It made it so much better. Before COVID, we would even do wedding planner luncheons. We would just go out, hang out, talk story, like, hey, so did anybody do this? Or do you need help with that? Or hey, do you need help on this wedding day or whatever it might be? It's so much better. We even do like annual Christmas parties. We just hang out and we just, it makes a big difference to know you have that support. Throughout COVID, we had our own wedding planners Facebook page. We're like, hey, I'm having problems with this venue. Does anybody have this problem? Or can anybody help me with that? Or hey, my staff called out sick because they have COVID. I need more staff for this day. It makes a huge difference to know that we're there to support each other and to know that, yes, technically on paper we're competition, but we're not because we're so different. I can easily tell people, hey, call Gina if you want somebody like me and I'm already booked. Call Sandra because she's great with design. She'll do sketches and all these really cute, fancy, beautiful things. I mean, we're just so different, but it works really well because we all take it so seriously because we know what it's like to own your own business, that we're not going to take um, bad care of any one couple that came from another planet because we want them to look good too. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
We all take it very seriously, so we're not going to mistreat any couple. We want to make sure that everybody gets the same level of experience no matter who they go with, and it makes a big difference. And I'm so lucky that we have that. That's why we'll never do an outer island wedding. I don't know how many times people are like, oh, we'll pay for you, fly over, we'll get your hotel. I'm like, nope, sorry, I'm only on Oahu because I know my group here. Like, I know if I need anything, I can call anybody to help me. Over there, I don't know anybody. Who am I going to call at the last minute to come and help me at a wedding? Like, I know
Yeah.
so many planners. And if a photographer calls in sick, I can call another one in 5 minutes. They'll do their best to come on over. On another
Hmm.
island, I'm like, I don't know. So I'm never gonna go outer island. I'm always gonna stay here. But I know who does go outer island. You can call Susan O'Donnell. She'll go another island. She's done it all the time. So call her. She'll take great care of you because she's done it. So it makes so much more sense this way. I think it's such a great thing to know your niche and be able to really enjoy that, and then to be able to maximize on just what that is, because everybody all around then gets the best experience. The vendors, the couples, everybody.
Yeah, I can totally attest to that because I think that's why I really enjoy emceeing weddings and being a part of weddings is you can really feel that community vibe amongst not only the different wedding planners but just the all the different types of vendors. Like it's almost like going to school and it's like seeing your
Yes.
friends. It's like, hey, you're here today, cool. And I think what that results in is for the couples and the families, like they can feel that like nothing can drag down the vibe if you see that there's tension or discomfort amongst people at the wedding, whether they're vendors or workers or guests. But when you have this like just this, infectious joy amongst the people, that just adds to that whole experience for the couples and their guests, because it's like, oh, this is a joyous occasion. These photographers are enjoying being here, and oh, the coordinator is happy to connect
Yeah,
these things together. So yeah, I that's what I think has really been so attractive to me, and why I continue to work weddings and such, is because it's so fun and like life giving. It's like, oh, we had a hand in coming together and making these people's night the epic, memorable, wonderful
yeah.
memory that they were hoping for.
Exactly. We all had a blast doing it. And that's the thing. I agree. I kind of think about it exactly the same way, like going to school. And I tell that to my staff when I'm interviewing new people. I'm like, you know what? It's honestly just like going to school and hanging out with your friends all day long. And by the way, someone's getting married. You know what I mean? It's just, okay, who do we get to see today?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It's just spending time and knowing that when you're such good friends, you're all in it for the same reason. You'll do whatever it takes to make that couple have the most amazing day possible, no matter what it is, or how silly it makes us look. It doesn't matter. It's just, how happy can we make this one couple with anything we can do for them that day? And that's what makes it so enjoyable, and that's why we do it over and over and over, no matter how stressful it can be. We know it's going to be, but when you know that you're working with an amazing team that's all in it for the right reason, nothing can beat that. It's so good. The synergy just happens on its own. It's so much fun.
Are there any things that you've seen, because COVID really put a screeching halt to the wedding industry, and I feel like coming out of it now, we've been several months now where everything's been wide open. I'm starting to see a couple little new different things that couples are doing and incorporating in their weddings and such. Are you seeing any new trends or services or activities that might be interesting for people to consider for their weddings, that you're seeing are different, that maybe a couple years ago we weren't seeing?
Not necessarily different, but I do see a stronger, higher value in spending more of their day on their wedding day with their guests versus being pulled away to
Uh,
take pictures when their guests are already there, or things like the registration table. Local
mhm.
people, we're kind of used to having friends and family man the registration table.
Yeah.
Mainland, not so much. So they really got away from that. I think more so with COVID, right? You don't want that much exposure or people, cross contamination and all of that. But
Yeah.
because of COVID, now we're able to offer more ways to have that process still happen with nobody actually having to sit there and actually
Oh,
miss that part of the wedding.
yeah, yeah,
It all comes down to, again, priorities. Whether it's more people that are now willing to pay and hire my staff to sit there and man the table because they don't want anybody to have to work that day. They want
yeah.
everybody to enjoy. Or just saying, hey, you know what? It's okay if we don't track the cards. We just don't want them to have to sit there. We just want them to just, if they have something, they put it in the box and then they're good to go. We don't have to
Yeah.
track it or anything anymore. We just want everybody to come and enjoy. Or, hey, we already told everybody no gifts, so we don't need a gift table. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So it's just, I think, going back to the
Yeah.
core of what the wedding is, of spending time with their guests, having a great time. We do also see people trying to fit more into weddings now than before. Before it was more kind of, okay, we want them to come, enjoy, just hang out, have a good time. But now we see a lot of, okay, let's do the line dance again. Let's do all these other small tea ceremonies and
Uh,
all the kind of smaller ceremonies again, because they're trying to
yeah.
do as much and create as much memories and events into that. So we do see things getting a little bit more elaborate in that sense, where they're trying to do a lot more in that small period of time.
You're mentioning, your staff and some people hiring them to work it, and I just have to say, like, for those who have not been around a wedding that, we have a coordinator like Kelly and her team working. It's the most impressive thing I've ever seen. Like, Kelly's got like 5 or 6 people all over the place, and they got like the Secret Service earpiece going on, and they're all like on walkie talkies, and they all got their clipboards, and it's the most impressive like operation I've ever seen. But at the same time, as chaotic as that sounds, it's so organized, and everyone is like so nice and bubbly. Like, I always have anxiety, like if I'm gonna ask one of them a question like that's gonna throw them off, like, can't you see I'm busy doing this other thing? But there I was like, oh, that's a great question, let me go find out for you. And it's like, oh, okay, we're good, we're good. So I just have to say shout outs to you and your
Oh,
team.
thank
Like,
you.
it's so impressive.
No, I'm very, very lucky throughout the year to have had and met the staff that I have. I mean, there's no way I could do even a tenth of what I do without them. I know without a doubt my job is only possible because of them. I can't even begin to say how amazing these people are. Even though some of them have technically maybe retired from working with me, if I really need it, I will call them. They'll come in anytime. I mean, Derek, he's been with me for probably from day one, so over 20 years. But if I ever need to, I'm calling him, and he comes in. They're like, "Oh my God, there's Derek!" I'm like, "Yes, he's retirement for this one." But it's kind of the same thing because they all know ultimately it's all for that couple. We'll do whatever we can. It's never about, "Oh my gosh, I had to give up my Saturday" or anything like that. It's just, "Oh my gosh, this is so much fun," and it's been really, really great. We've been so lucky to be able to do what we've been doing for so long, because I never thought it could have been a career, to be honest. I just
Yeah.
started helping friends and family, and somebody asked me to charge them one day, and then somebody asked me for a contract another day, and I'm like, I guess I have to start charging somebody something, or I have to create a contract. And I even had this one lady when I first starting out. She tipped me over $2,000 and said, "You need to charge more now." I'm like, "Okay."
Oh,
And
wow.
that, those kinds of moments are like, "Okay, I guess maybe I should charge a little bit more." So, I mean, life just happens the way it does, and things are going to happen at certain times. We may not know why, but eventually,
Hmm.
years down the road, we might realize it. And there's always going to be tough times, but overall, we're just so lucky to have done what we did, and yeah, to be able to meet the people that we have. It's amazing. I never would have met a tenth of the people that I've met in my entire life if it wasn't for weddings. I mean, I know people from all over the world. I'm a sheltered little girl from Hawaii. I've never even went away for college. Like, I never would have met these people. But I mean, people are like, "Hey, if you're in San Francisco, come stay with us," or "Come visit us in Japan." I'm like, "Okay, one day." But no, it's been so amazing. So these people are just wonderful people.
Have you ever taken up anyone's offer like that, like to stay at their place?
No, I mean, I've even had somebody who has like an Airbnb in different places. They're like, "Hey, seriously, you come here. I want you to stay in one of my beach houses." I'm like, "Okay." Or like
Why
a
don't you take them
father.
up on it? That sounds amazing.
I know, no, I don't know. I just feel bad. Or like I had this one dad. I remember on the wedding day, he was pretty drunk. He's like, "No, seriously, I want you to come and stay with us." I'm like, "Okay." And then the next day he called. He goes, "I know I was drunk yesterday, but I meant it. I want you to come stay with us." I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right, all right." And then a few years later, "I know you probably forgot me, but I didn't forget you. I really mean it." I'm like, "Okay, thank you." These people are just really amazing, so kind and generous people. They're just wonderful, wonderful people. Yeah.
You better call that guy up right now after we finish with this. Like, the poor guy must be like, she doesn't like me.
No, I know. I'm like, "No, you come back to Hawaii." No, I mean, I'll never forget them too. I mean, that one I remember. She was a doctor. They called me with less than a month before their wedding because the person that they had originally hired never called them back, and they were just like
Oh,
freaking out. They're
wow.
like, "Oh my gosh, we don't know if she's actually even going to show up that day or if she's done anything for us.
Yeah.
We have no contracts. We didn't make any deposits. We need a wedding in less than 30 days."
Yikes.
I'm like, "Okay." But I'll never forget them. And we made it happen. It happened at Turtle Bay. And this was many years ago. But yeah, it's just, you never know what's going to come into your lap and who's going to call next or anything. It's just, and of course we wanted to help them. That's why we do what we do. It's really just to help people. We didn't think, "Oh, I want to be a planner." It was, "I want to help people. How can I help people?" So you call and you
Yeah.
need help. We're going to do everything we possibly can. Even if it's not us, we're like, "Hey, did you try so and so? If not, if they're not available, call me back. Tell me, and I'll get you somebody else." Because that's why we do it. We're not doing it because, oh, we love taking photographs. We do it because we want to help, and it's just this, we have this ability to be able to do it through organization. And how lucky is that? I love paperwork, and I
Yeah.
can still help people. So it's really, we've been really, really lucky.
That's just, I think, the craziest thing about you, and there's a lot of crazy things, but the craziest that you keep saying that you love paperwork, which is just so incredibly strange to me. Like, who would say that they love
Oh,
paperwork? Kelly would say that.
yes, paperwork and post-its and highlighters and all of it. If you just love it, it makes me so happy. Yeah.
And so in this story that you're explaining, so just so that others understand, like, you coordinate weddings for not only couples that are here on island, but couples that are traveling, that live off island, that are planning weddings here on Oahu too, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's why we don't have, typical quote unquote office hours, because our clients are all over the world. So there are time differences and things like that. And yeah, we just make it work because I feel so bad for them. They feel so stressed out because they feel they're at a deficit just for not living here. And I tell them it's
Oh,
okay, especially nowadays. Technology is so amazing. They're at no
yeah.
deficit. The only thing is we can't have them taste the food. But I told them I can taste it for you. But other than that, everything else, don't worry about. It's the same as if you were here locally planning it, because a lot of people still aren't even doing in-person meetings, so they'll get the same exact Zoom
Hmm.
meeting that they would have if they were here.
Yeah.
As long as they trust the vendors that they're hiring, that's how they'll get the peace of mind. They just have to trust them. Yeah.
So you talk about all keep all kinds of weird hours and stuff. I I have to imagine that your career, you've had the most strange hours of compared to most careers, because I mean all of your weekends are insanely booked, and then all during the weekdays you're planning and coordinating all that stuff. So it just sounds to me exhausting, thinking about the kind of work that you do. But you've been doing it for, as you just said, like 20 years. Can you describe what it's been like for you, as far as what your hours are like, and what
Yeah.
being a
No,
coordinator has been like for you life wise?
it definitely can be exhausting, but I really look at it as, in a way, it's given me so much as well. Because I have such a flexible schedule, I get to go to field trips with my kids. If they get sick, I get to stay home and take care of them. If they have a performance, I get to go and watch. Or I have the ability to actually block out my calendar if I didn't want to work a certain weekend because we're going to travel or things like that. So I have so much
Yeah.
flexibility. And my couples, every single one of them, have given me this life. They've given me the ability to be the mom and the parent that I've always wanted to be. And I tell this to people all the time. Growing up, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to be. All I knew is I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be that mom that
Mm.
went to the field trips, that went to the in-person parent-teacher conferences, that went to the performances, that went to the soccer games, and I get to do that. Maybe not every soccer game, but I get to go to them thanks to my
Oh, you're
couples
not
for
missing
giving me
out on
this
much. It's
lifestyle.
soccer.
It's a lot of fun, but still, I
Yeah.
get to do all of this because of my clients. Because I
Yeah.
can do a 6 a.m. phone call, then I get to stay up late and go to their performance at night or whatever it might be. But it's
Hmm.
because of this ability and this lifestyle that it gives me kind of the best of both worlds. Granted, I'm getting older, so I can't do back to backs or those kinds of crazy weddings, but it gives me the ability to now even set my schedule. Because I've been doing it for so long, I get to pick and choose which weddings I take. I don't have to take every single wedding because I don't need all that business anymore. It's just, okay, well, do I want to have that weekend off, or do I want to take a month off, or what do I want to do? But every single client that trusts us gives me that ability and the lifestyle that I now get to have. So I always know how lucky I am, and I'm always extremely appreciative of that, because if it wasn't for them, there's no way I could have this. I realize now there's no job that would give me this flexibility that I now get to have. Because even though, yeah, I do 6 a.m. phone calls or I do 10 p.m. phone calls, that's a choice that I make. It's a choice that I make to say I'm going to be up that night and do a 10 o'clock phone call. No one forced me
Yeah.
to do it, but I get the ability to realize, okay, but if I do that, then I get to do this, and that's amazing. Most people don't get that ability, so I'm really, really
Yeah.
lucky. Yeah.
Well, we're really lucky that you have found and chosen this life path for yourself, because it's definitely impacted not just the couples that you worked with, but for people like myself, the vendors that you've been working with. Like, it's absolutely brought so much joy to my life. As I mentioned, I love doing weddings and stuff, and a lot of it is because of my experiences that you've created with the team and
Oh,
the environment you've created. So thank you for doing all that you've done, and I'm
no,
so
thank
glad to have been
you.
connected with you.
Same here. My staffing are like, oh, Nolan's working. I want to work that one. I'm like, yeah, I know everybody wants to work that one. It makes a huge, like I told you, that MC is probably the most important vendor on that day. In the eyes of me, it's a planner coming from me, because I know that you will make or break it for us. And I know that when it's you, you take it seriously, you're very reliable, you're a professional. We never have to worry about anything. And on top of that, we get to have fun doing it. So it makes a world of difference. It really, really does. My staff love it when you're the MC. I cannot tell
Aw,
you how much, but truly and
that
honestly, we really do.
that means a lot. And I would be remiss though if I didn't have this one last question that we didn't talk about, because I bet so many people have been waiting, because they're probably anticipating me asking this. We've talked about all of the great things and wonderful memories and stuff, but do you have any memories of, like, horror stories or things that you will take with you as, oh my gosh, this was the one? Like any kind of wedding experience that,
Yeah,
of course, we
yeah.
could preserve the identities of those to protect them. But yeah, I
So
think we all have our one or two horror stories that we
exactly,
go to. Yeah.
exactly. And I would get this question a lot at one point. But it's really interesting because the one that always keeps coming back to me, and I really understand now, it's because it's probably such a personal memory because it was my brother's wedding. I mean,
Oh
we've
wow.
had like life or death other things, but this one was not life or death at all. But because it was my brother's wedding, I will never forget it, and it felt so much more impactful. But I remember to this day all the little steps where my sister-in-law was planning and she's like, hey Kelly, so I want to use my friend as a florist because she wants to get into wedding flowers. I'm like, okay, great, you trust her, that's all that matters. Just send me pictures of what you're asking her to create for you so that way I know what it should look like and things like that. So she unfortunately didn't get around to sending me the pictures of things, and her wedding day came about. She was getting hair and makeup done at the salon, so we were all there with her. We had the florals delivered to the salon, so I showed it to her like we always show the bride first thing when we get her bouquet. She's like, oh, that's not what I wanted. I'm like, okay, can
Oh
you
no.
describe to me what you wanted? So she described it to me. I was like, okay, I think I understand. I described it to my assistant. I said, you're going to take these flowers back, you're going to describe this to her, and then have her redo it and then bring it back. When you come back, we're probably going to be at her house because she's going to change and get ready for the tea ceremony. So I sent him off with the flowers. By the time he came back, we were at the house. He brings me the bouquet. I'm like, oh, it's not exactly what I thought it was going to look like, but okay, let me try. I showed it to my sister-in-law again. She goes, oh, it's not what I wanted. I'm like, okay, we're at your house. Do you have the picture? She goes, yes, I have the picture. I'm like, okay, go grab me the picture. She ran and got me the picture. I'm like, okay, got it. So then at that point, I realized, okay, her friend got the picture already. So unfortunately, even with the second attempt, she wasn't able to get what she wanted. So I don't want to stress out the friend, and I don't want my sister-in-law to not have what she wants. So I called my favorite florist at the time, and I'm like, okay, I know it's a Sunday. I mean, it's a Saturday, busy wedding season, but let me try to give her a shot. So I called her up. I'm saying, okay, so this is what's going on. Are you busy? She's like, actually, I'm at a wedding, but I'm between setups. I'm driving around Waikiki, so my air stays cold, so my flowers don't die. What do you need? I'm like, okay, I'm in Kamaki, so not far from Waikiki, but this is what's going on. She goes, oh yeah, I have time. Let me come over. So I sent her my sister-in-law's address, texted her. She came over in the middle of my sister-in-law's driveway, left her car running so her flower stays
Yeah.
fresh. She took apart the bouquet. I showed her the picture. She made it, duplicated the picture. She made a toss bouquet out of the extra flowers that weren't supposed to be in there. And to this day, my sister-in-law has no idea it wasn't her friend that did it.
Oh no way. Well, now she knows.
Yeah. But really, I
Sorry,
mean,
sis.
that's really the idea, right? It's that the bride has
Yeah.
no idea. My friend, the florist, didn't charge her anything because she's like, I don't care. If I can help, why wouldn't I help? So, yeah, of course I'm going to
Wow,
help.
that's so
She came
cool.
and did it, and yeah, all done.
Dang. All right, that's pretty amazing. I can see why you'd remember that one.
Yeah, and again, it wasn't life or death. We've had many life or death situations, which were not necessarily fun, but of course, all happened and all ended happily, really, really well, thankfully. But yeah, that's the one that always jumps out when people ask me, "Oh, what's one thing that happened to you?" I'm like, "Okay, let me tell you something." Yeah.
So my one that I go to, you didn't work because it was an outdoor wedding out in North Shore. So, but basically the groom got so wasted that by the end of the evening he was hanging from the bars of the tent, and the tent started swaying, and we thought, oh no, he's gonna bring this thing down on all of us, and
Yes.
then and then a few minutes later we saw him walking back to the house that that they're
Uh
staying at
huh.
with nothing on but the tablecloth wrapped around his waist. And I was like, I don't know what to do right now because everybody's like ushering him away and everyone's confused and worried about their safety. And we still have another hour left of the
Oh my
wedding
gosh.
reception. But yeah, he was very appreciative and they were happy still at the end of the night. But
That's what matters.
yeah, but I was
Was the
like,
program done?
this was at the dance portion of the program, so
Also,
technically the
not too
program's
bad.
done. Yeah,
Okay.
but it was a destination wedding, so everyone was still there, and they all got there by tour bus. So it's not like
They couldn't
people
leave.
could. Yeah, so they're just stuck there, and I just remember being like, I can't believe that this is real life right now. That the groom
Yeah.
is buck naked walking around with the tablecloth
Yeah,
as
you
his
just never
his
know.
garments. Yeah.
You never know. We had a bride that passed out in the middle of her program. So I'm like,
What?
yeah, I was watching her. And I'm like, oh my god, she's gonna pass out. So I told my girl that by the MC, I said, tell him we're gonna go to slideshow now. And she was like, what? She goes, slideshow now. So I was like, okay. So he goes, okay, we did a slideshow, so we had to let them dunk, and her head was completely on the head table, and she was out. Like she was gone for the rest of the night. I'm like, okay, I guess
Oh
that's the
my
program.
gosh.
Yeah. Oh my
Was it?
god.
Was she okay? Like eventually,
Yeah.
or okay?
No, yeah, she was fine. She supposedly her friends told us this happens all the time. I'm like, oh, okay. I wish somebody had told us. We would have been more prepared. But okay, I'm glad she's okay, and
Oh.
this is a normal thing.
I'm glad I wasn't working that way. I
Oh
don't
my
know.
gosh.
That would
No,
have
I
been
will not
a
forget it.
fine line to walk.
Yeah, yeah. Try to be. Yeah, that's a good tip. Try to stay sober as much as you can, just so that
Yeah.
you remember everything and that you'll be present.
And stay hydrated. Yeah, you gotta be like with water, not
Yes,
don't
hydration is
hydrate with
important.
alcohol. Yeah. Well, Kelly, this has been awesome. I love catching up with you, and it's been just a wonderful however many years of
Yeah.
working with you. But I'm really excited not only to continue working with you from your coordination side, but I'm really excited about your new
Oh,
business
thank
that you're
you.
introducing. So please keep us up to date with everything going on with that. And for those who are interested in learning more about either Perfect Day or Borrowed Blooms, how can they stay in touch with you or get to know more information about you?
So with A Perfect Day, it's just aperfectdayhawaii.com, and Borrowed Blooms is borrowedbloomshawaii.com.
Oh, easy enough. Okay, so we'll put the links in our show notes in the description as well, so people can find it. But Kelly, as always, I could talk for your hours, and for some of the weddings we worked, we spent a lot of time talking when when there's a lot of dead time. So this is not new to us, but thank you so much for taking time to share with us all of your experience and knowledge. And
Oh, thank you.
I think this has been just a joy and eye-opening experience for many of our listeners who had no idea what goes on in the wedding world here.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.